We are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Social Services Committee for Wednesday, September 3rd. I'll now call this meeting to order. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
Through the chair, the roll has been taken.
Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for any items appearing on the agenda today? All right, seeing none, I'll now ask at this time, are there any items that the committee wishes to separate for discussion purposes, noting that item 5.1 2026 shared social services budget has already been separated as we have a presentation. Councillor Miller, go ahead.
Five, reach home at this point. 5-4.
Councillor Carpenter, go ahead.
5-2.
All right, so seeing no further hands, can I please get a mover and seconder to place all items for consideration and consent on the floor? Councillor Bell and Councillor Oakley, perfect.
The item subject to the vote is 5.3 2025-2026 Homelessness Prevention Program Investment Plan and the minutes from June 4th. All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
All right, there are no delegations today, but we do have one presentation on the agenda. I'll now ask Mary Musson, Commissioner of Community Services and Social Development, to make a presentation on item 5.1 2026 shared social services budget. You have 10 minutes for your presentation, and questions will be held until we discuss the item.
Good morning. I'm Mary Musson, Commissioner of Community Services and Social Development for the City of Brantford. I am pleased to be here today to present the 2026 Shared Social Services Budget for Committee's consideration. I'm joined today by Acting Director of Housing and Homelessness Services, Katie Moss, and the Director of Community Strategies and Family Supports, Michelle Connor, as well as staff from all the departments within this commission. The City of Brantford is the consolidated municipal service manager designated by the Province of Ontario, responsible for the delivery of children's services, Ontario Works, housing services, and homelessness services in the City of Brantford and the County of Brant. The shared social services budget is apportioned between the city and the county on basis of population. The population share has shifted slightly to be 72.1% city and 27.9% county. We will start with the 2026 operating budgets. Children's services in Ontario are under mounting financial pressures, particularly at the municipal level. In 2019, the province reduced the administrative funding to municipalities from 10% to 5%, and simultaneously required municipalities to cost share the 5%. Previous to this, administrative funding was 100% provincially funded. Concurrently, the administrative responsibilities of service system managers has increased with the addition of the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare, or CWELC, program in 2022. In addition to being the local implementation lead of the CWELC program, the Children's Services and Early Years Division provides support and oversight to 24 licensed childcare providers, administers the provincial childcare fee subsidy program, facilitates special needs supports for children in childcare, and is responsible for the administration of early on and Indigenous-led programs. Currently, 2026 provincial funding allocations for children's services in early years are unknown. The 2026 budget projects a $189,698 increase to maintain mandated service delivery. The increase is driven by contractual wage and benefit increases, inflationary increases to administrative overhead costs, and reduced deferred unconditional provincial funding. The Family and Income Stability Division is responsible for Ontario Works program delivery in the City of Brantford and the County of Brant. The local annual average Ontario Works caseload is the highest it has been in the past 10 years, having surpassed 2013 caseload levels last year in 2024. The average monthly caseload for Brantford Brant is being projected by the ministry to increase by 8.8% in 2025-26 and an additional 6.1% in 2026-27. However, a linear projection based on 2024 and 2025 actuals indicates that a 15% caseload increase can be expected, resulting in an average monthly caseload of 3,630 households by the fourth quarter of 2026. The 2026 budget increase of $619,967 includes the net 50% cost share for the addition of 5 new full-time service coordinators, totaling $278,547 to support the anticipated increase in caseload. The remaining $341,420 budget increase is primarily driven by contractual wage and benefit increases and inflationary increases to administrative expenses. The housing budget encompasses the operating needs of the housing development, housing programs, and housing operations divisions. Since the provincial download of social housing to municipalities in 2001, local governments have struggled to sustain housing services on a property tax base that was never designed to fund them. The Housing Operations Division maintains over 1,300 community and affordable housing units in Brantford Brant. Since 2018, 207 additional housing units have been operationalized, increasing the municipality's responsibilities for asset upkeep, tenant health and safety, and housing quality assurance. All service managers are experiencing an annual funding decline from the Canada-Ontario Social Housing Agreement, with a full reduction by 2030 for the City of Brantford. Additionally, various provincial and federal funding streams are provisional and without long-term confirmed allocations. Simultaneously, legislative requirements, as well as administrative and reporting requirements to provincial and federal ministries, continue to increase in frequency and complexity. The 2026 budget increase of $654,164 includes the addition of 1 new full-time senior project manager and 1 new full-time maintenance servicer, totaling $266,527. The remaining $387,637 budget increase is primarily driven by contractual wage and benefit increases, inflationary increase to administrative costs, contracted services and overhead costs, and insurance and utilities. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario 2025 report, Municipalities Under Pressure, the Growing Human and Financial Cost of Ontario's Homelessness Crisis, indicates that homelessness in rural Ontario has surged dramatically in recent years, growing by more than 150% since 2016, far outpacing the provincial average of 50%. Rural communities, such as those in the County of Brant, face a high prevalence of hidden homelessness, where individuals often live in unstable or temporary arrangements without accessing formal supports. Local point and time count data shows that a continuing upward trend in homelessness in Brantford Brant, with a 56% increase from 2023 to 2024. The city's by name list data shows that as of June 30th, 2025, 602 people were experiencing homelessness, with almost half meeting the definition of chronically homeless. This is a 63% increase in the number of known people experiencing homelessness in Brantford Brant since 2021. The 2026 budget increase of $57,612 in homelessness includes the annualization of the 2 full-time community initiatives coordinators responsible for encampment outreach that were approved in the 2025 budget, contractual wage and benefit increases, and inflationary increases for contracted homelessness services. The draft operating budget for shared social services represents a 7.92% base increase over the previous year. The largest monetary increases are seen in the Family and Income Stability, or OW division, in anticipation of ongoing caseload growth, and in the housing budget line, which represents the needs of 3 of the 4 divisions in housing. Staff is also seeking consideration and approval of 2 additional budget investments that have not been included in the base budget. The Housing Stability Worker Pilot Program is currently funded through a reserve fund until March 31st, 2026, after which time, without an identified funding source, the program will end. This program has been critical in maintaining tenancies for households residing in city-owned or operated units. The annual cost per homeless individual is estimated at $50,000 to $70,000 annually. This includes costs for emergency shelter use and other homelessness programs, hospital visits, policing, incarceration, and crisis services. Maintaining a household's tenancy through the HSW program is a cost-effective investment in housing stability and homelessness prevention. The transition of 4 contracted pilot program housing stability workers to permanent full-time is a $381,045 financial investment, representing an additional 1.99% increase. Staff is also recommending a homelessness service system enhancement through the addition of 2 community initiatives coordinators for housing outreach. These 2 additional staff will be utilized to expand current housing outreach services to include street outreach in the city of Brantford, focusing on the downtown core and other areas with high levels of activity, and encampment and street outreach in the county of Brant. The addition of 2 community initiative coordinators for housing outreach would total $201,629, representing an additional 1.05% increase. The additional budget investments being requested would increase the overall budget by $582,674, or 10.96%. We are now moving to the 2026 capital budget. The 2026 proposed capital budget of $7,521,350 includes 1 new affordable housing build, with the remainder focused on state of good repair. The new affordable housing build is proposed to be funded from a combination of anticipated grants, city-county reserves held by the city, and debt that will be serviced from rental revenues. The state of good repair projects are proposed to be funded from a combination of CMHC grants and city-county reserves that are held by the city. No additional funding from the city or county is needed to fund the proposed capital budget for 2026. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Now the committee will consider items that were separated for discussion. Could I get a mover and a seconder to place all separated items on the floor? Councillor McCurry and Councillor Carpenter, thank you. So now we'll discuss item 5.1. Any discussion? Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to probably Michelle, but Mary, you can answer it if you're able to. I'm focusing in right now in my questions on the community strategies and family supports. And I understand that there is built into the budget hiring 5 additional service coordinators. And what they do is they help with the Ontario Works caseload. They're social workers, in common parlance. How many do we have right now?
Through the chair, currently, I think we have 29.
So if you're expecting a 15% increase in caseload, is it 10 or 15?
Well, the ministry has made a projection that is 8.8% the first year and 6.1% the year after. When we, it's on, there's a nice chart in here actually for you on page 19. When we have done the projections, we think it's closer to 15.5%. Yeah, so 15.5%.
Okay. So if you thought it was going to be somewhere between 10 and 15, wouldn't it be 3 additional caseworkers, not 5? If you're doing it proportionally?
So we include, what we took was the full staffing complement and looked at the increase based on the full staffing complement, given that there are other work is done to support the clients, not just at the service coordinator level. We also have community resource navigators who just support some folks with on the ground warm handoffs. We have clerks work. It increases the workload of all of the staff, not just service coordinators. What we would like to do is focus those dollars on service coordination, potentially community resource navigators, in order to put as much of it into the front line as we can.
Okay. And so this is a program that in most other provinces, the provinces would administer.
Mm.
And they've downloaded to us and said they pay 50%, but now they're paying less.
Yes.
All right. So what's the impact if we decide no additional service coordinators?
I would imagine that it will be very difficult to maintain the level of mandated work that we're supposed to do. There, I'm not sure that we've got anywhere left to cut. We've done a lot of cuts over the last few years, as you know. We are advocating to the ministry to express our concern that we need funding in order to maintain the mandated services. I'm sorry.
So what would happen is each service worker would have a greater caseload.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Would the time where someone's application on Ontario Works, between the time they apply and the time they receive benefits, we don't have the 5, would that be extended or would that be the priority?
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So through the chair, so the application time may not be extended because right now that's centralized with the province. However, the greater impact is that program guidelines are changing with the ministry, and municipalities and program delivery agents are now being held accountable to program measures. And should we not get the staffing increases, we will not meet our program targets, which will translate to actually a reduction in provincial funding towards the Ontario Works program.
Is there anything we can do with, I'm very mindful we don't want to impact those who are most in need, but is there anything we can do in terms of what we do in your entire department that would cause a minimum of disruption to our residents, but send a really pointed message to the province that we aren't taking this anymore? Them refusing to pay or failing to pay their fair share and just downloading everything onto us.
Through the chair, appointment message, what we would have to look at is what services the Family and Income Stability Division is delivering that is not mandated and legislated by the province. And we would have to seriously consider reducing or eliminating these types of services to the community. And that will impact the public, but it would also send a message to the province. Unfortunately, the people most impacted are the most vulnerable who we serve.
Last question by me, Madam Chair.
So I was just gonna add to that, you're at the time for your speaking opportunity, but there's nobody in the queue, so you can just go ahead with your second speaking opportunity.
So what is the overall budget increase in terms of, if we do everything you're asking us to do, it's around 11%?
Through the chair, correct, it's just under 11%.
And what is that in terms of dollars? So another $1.6 million?
Through the chair, 2.1 million.
Okay, so now I'm looking to Joelle. Could you give us some indication what the potential impact will be on the mill rate for next year with these increases? Knowing you have to make certain assumptions about assessment growth.
Through the chair to Mayor Davis. Yes, certainly it's going to be based on a number of assumptions, and I can really only speak to how the city portion would impact on the city budget. I think at the base level, assuming 2% assessment growth, that the overall impact would be proportionately for this service, resulting in about a 5.6% increase. And then for this particular service, with the additional requests, about 8.6%. I can't really speak to overall city budget yet, but for this particular service, 5.6 and 8.6.
Yeah, what would the impact be on I know it's difficult to estimate, but the overall mill rate is going to be like over and above that, which was projected in the multi-year budget.
Through the chair, roughly based on what we originally proposed, this would add, we're estimating another 0.8%, 0.84% on the city portion additionally to what we had estimated. And then with the additional investments would add about another 1.14%.
Maybe someone else will have something.
Go ahead, Councillor Miller.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll try and be very pointed with the questions, cognizant of time. Senior project manager, through Madam Chair to Mary, it was laid out very well, why we need a senior project manager. But for a lot of the things that they're gonna have to look after, the changes aren't coming till for 3 or 4 years. Why do we need the senior project manager now? Can this be deferred?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. No, it cannot be deferred because we already have housing providers who have reached end of mortgage or end of operating, and they are waiting to enter into service agreements with the service manager. Right now, this is new legislation that came through in 2021. And so we have been working diligently, not only with the province, but with other service managers to find the best way to complete these new service agreements. We have received limited direction. So service managers have been collaborating with each other on developing the process. And we are now ready to start working internally with finance and legal to draft service agreements, focusing on nonprofits such as JC's nonprofit homes. They have already reached end of operating and end of mortgage for some properties, and we need to enter into new service agreements with them.
I'd ask, second question, annualization of 2 full-time housing outreach community initiative coordinators. We have these big names, but I understand that they are mainly for the homeless encampments, these two. And from what I understand, they're doing a very good job. What's the difference between a housing outreach community initiative coordinator and then you're looking for 2 additional community initiatives coordinator? I don't understand. What's the difference?
Through the chair, there is no difference. It was probably just moving the words around within the report. They would be 2 additional positions who complete the same type of work as the current encampment outreach workers. However, those 2 staff people, they are at their maximum capacity. So their mandate is to work in the encampments. These 2 additional staff people would do street outreach in both the city and the county. And they would also be dedicated to encampment outreach in the county.
Okay, so we have 2 doing it now. You're looking for an additional 2. My question is, why are you looking at the ratepayers, property tax ratepayers for that? And I'm sneaking in a question from another report, but in the Reaching Home Investment Plan, you've allocated $10,000 for program costs for encampment outreach. $10,000. So technically, you could use those monies, yes, for some of these positions. Could you? That's what I'm wondering.
So through the chair, this is a service level enhancement, and with the Reaching Home grant funding stream, there's actual mandates on the use of it with program guidelines. With the limited funding, and as in the Reaching Home report, we don't have enough funding to do all the work that we would like to do. Also, Reaching Home federal grant funding is finite, so at any point in time, we might lose the funding, and then these 2 positions would end. So we would not be able to guarantee the ongoing positions.
Okay, and last question, if I still have time. You're asking for 4 housing stability workers. And again, you've done a great job laying out what that role will entail. And I think it fits with the theme of the goal of homelessness is not to build more shelters, it's to prevent them from getting into the shelters in the first place. My question is, do we need 4?
Through the chair, yes, this pilot program has been running since April of 2023, and it has had some excellent results, including having households repay the arrears that they owe to housing services, whether it's through the local housing corporation or to the city. And right now, we do need 4 for safety purposes. Staff do not go into units alone; they always go in pairs. So we do need multiple people for the positions. Also, we have 1,300 units of housing. So at any point in time, we can have more people referred to the caseload. Each housing stability worker only carries a caseload of 30 households maximum. And right now, we do have a waiting list for people wanting to be brought into the housing stability worker program. So yes, we do need 4 people.
Thank you.
Councillor Bell, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mary, thank you to you and your team. That's a very clear, concise report. It's not a very comfortable report. Every indicator, every trend seemed to be in the wrong direction. And my concern, I guess, is that you've shown us to the end of 26 in some cases. My guess is that if you were to extrapolate it further, the trend would continue. So I'm interested to know if you have a forecast of what the social services budget would be out to, I'm going to say 2030. I know the city does look forward on a number of years. My concern is if we don't do something different, if we don't get help from the province, then we'll be here next year and the year after with the same concerns, and the budget will just continue to increase at a rate of somewhere between 8 and 10%. Is that a correct assessment?
So through the chair, no, we have not done a long range forecast for operational needs. However, what I can say is that staff are working diligently to always find efficiencies. So what we are requesting today has been required for years, but staff have managed to find ways to complete the work off the sides of their desks or with doing overtime. At this point, we are at a critical time point where we need interventions to hopefully address the current issues that we are seeing, and we are working diligently to reduce the requests in future years.
So have you asked for all the interventions that you think are appropriate at this time?
Through the chair, we did a strategic look, and these are the ones that we really need right now.
Okay, I'm still leaving with a level of confidence that next year that we'll be talking to the same story. If I take one specific question on housing stability workers, I think when you brought this subject to us before, you made a very compelling case that if we don't have these housing stability workers, we're going to pay a price anyway. So they kind of pay for themselves. Is that again a fair assessment?
Through the chair, that's a very fair assessment. Right now, based on the AMO report, the cost of homelessness for one person is $50,000 to $70,000 a year. If what I can say factually is that when a person enters homelessness, right away to enter the emergency sheltering system, it's $85 a day if they're in an emergency shelter, or up to $120 a day if they're in a motel. Then you add in all the extra services that are being provided to them through homelessness community service providers, but then you add any other service systems that they touch, whether it's the hospital, whether it's policing, whether it's incarceration. And so the costs do increase. So this is a strong investment in trying to keep people housed.
So simply put, the investment you're looking for would indeed pay for itself.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Carpenter, go ahead, please.
So the new build in the budget is that 687 Comer Street.
Through the chair, yes, it is.
It says 8 to 12 units.
Through the chair, we're just estimating right now how many units we can build there. Once we have a development plan, we will be bringing it to Social Services Committee for approval. And once approved by Social Services Committee, it will have to start the site plan applications through the city.
So the 4.5 million based on the 12 units then?
I'm sorry, could you
The
repeat?
4.5 million in the budget based on the 12 units?
That is correct.
Okay, so how much of the 50%, when the original agreement started, the province said they'd pay 50%. What percentage are they at now?
For housing development, I'll ask Judy, but it has decreased. I think we're assuming approximately 20% for grants.
So they owe us 30% of our budget.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. Right now, we're just assuming a 20% grant subsidy in order to come in for some housing development.
I guess we could send them a bill. I don't think they'd pay it, but we could send them a bill. Or maybe we can put it on our tax bill. This is how much your tax the province owes you. Now, you talked about new guidelines for the province has new guidelines, which is more, I read that as red tape. More paperwork to fill out, more forms to fill out to respond back to the province's 20% funding. That'd be a fair statement?
That is a very accurate statement. We've received indication that for certain funding streams like the homelessness prevention program, there'll be increased monthly reporting required that duplicates information that we are already providing to the ministry. And with every grant funding stream, there's different types of reporting guidelines. So depending on what grant funding we receive, we have to report on scheduled timelines, whether it's construction milestones or if it's for operational funding, then on outcomes.
Okay, thank you. And so, Madam Chair, I just see increased reporting, more red tape, less funding by the federal or by the provincial government. Thank you.
Counselor McCrory, go ahead, please.
Chair, thank you. Back to Joelle. Joelle, presuming that everything before us today is approved, could you indicate, without any other inputs, what the approximate cost to the average residential taxpayer would be to sustain this?
Through the chair, I don't have that number handy today. You know, what I can say is that, you know, although this is a significant increase, there's still steps where this is going to come back to city council for final approval. At that time, we will have the remainder of the city budget available as well. And I would just for the city's portion of this as well, the city councilors may recall that we did put a significant amount of our 2024 surplus into our tax stabilization reserve. And that may be somewhere we may be able to go to help reduce or phase in the impact of this increase that we're seeing in the shared services budget.
So when this is before us at council, as it will be, could you please have that number available? The total amount this would represent to the average taxpayer, which is an assessment of 280,000, I think. Is that about right?
Through the chair, yes, we will be able to provide that number at that time.
Okay. Or in advance of that, if time permits, would be fine as well. Next, so with respect to our multi-year budget for the year 2026, were there already increases in staffing and services embedded from the 2025 numbers?
Through the chair, no, there was not.
So it was entirely based upon what we did last year. This
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And does someone have any sort of indication of the total amount of money that the city of Brantford spends with respect to patrolling and trying to relieve the hardships of people that live in encampments and those who cause social disorder in the city?
Through the chair, I don't have an actual figure, but I can go back and have staff take a look and see what we can produce for committee.
That would be very, very useful to us, I think, for the later discussion at council. You know, there comes a point when the two graphs collide, the ever increasing demands on the taxpayer and those who no longer can afford to remain in their homes. And some of that's driven, I think, by the ever increasing load that we lay on people in terms of taxes, not to mention the seeming collapse of the Elbows Up initiative and you know, the things that are extraneous to our control within the purview of the federal liberals and the provincial governments who seem quite content to just let us do everything now. It's becoming increasingly unsustainable, and what's before us today is it's just too darn much for folks to get their heads around, I think. So that further information would be most helpful to us in deliberating the budget later. Thank you.
Counselor Sicoli, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair, to Mary. My question is pertaining to the ask for 2 additional community initiative coordinators. And my question is more so related to, I know that you meet with a lot of organizations, and I know that there are some other organizations that are already doing this, and SOAR comes to mind. I believe they're doing it anyway. No? Okay. That was my question. I was trying to see if there were any other organizations that are already doing this or if we're duplicating service. Go ahead.
So through the chair, that's a great question. The city is actually the lead for the City of Brantford Encampment Network. And so other organizations that participate in it do outreach, but the overall goal has always been to not duplicate services. So other organizations who are completing outreach might be doing it for specific communities. So I'll give an example. Brantford Native Housing, they have an Indigenous outreach, and part of our encampment protocol is that when outreach staff work with Indigenous families, they coordinate with Brantford Native Housing first, and the household has the choice of who they would like to work with, and we support each other. So the beauty of the encampment network is that we have eliminated service duplication.
That is exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you so much.
All right, at this time, I believe Mayor Davis, you have a motion you'd like to move?
I would like to move, seeking a seconder, that in respect to this item and this item only, that we increase the speaking opportunities from 2 to 4. And if I could explain the rationale for that. When we at the city, our estimates committee and we're dealing with budgets, we actually allow for unlimited speaking opportunities. What often happens is council members will have a number of questions they'll ask, and it might take 1 or 2 or 3 speaking opportunities each to get the information they need. And then generally you'd like to have councilors then making comments about whatever the budget item is. So that's hoping that we can apply a modified estimates committee rule here, because we are dealing with budget item. It's a very significant, very important budget item. And I believe we should have a fulsome discussion at this level before we move it up to our council.
I'm just looking for who your seconder is.
I'm assuming you had a seconder because you allowed the debate.
Guess, Councillor Carpenter, were you seconding that then? Okay, and this will require 2/3 vote. Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
I'll do a recorded vote on this. Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Counselor Sepoli?
Yes.
Counselor McCreary?
Yes.
Counselor Carpenter?
Yes.
Counselor Samwell?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Counselor Bell?
Yes.
Counselor Oakley?
Yes.
Counselor Miller?
Yes.
Counselor Howes?
Yes.
And Counselor Gardner?
Yes.
Carried unanimously.
All right, and with that, Mayor Davis, you can have your 3rd speaking opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Question to, I guess this will go to Mary. The 2 full-time staff, the senior project manager, maintenance service provider in respect to housing, is that because we have more housing developments and we're going to be developing more?
Through the chair, yes. And the short answer is yes. The maintenance servicer, our current maintenance servicer complement is for maintenance servicers for over 1,300 units. So we do need 1 additional maintenance servicer. And since 2018, we have added 207 additional housing units to the housing portfolio and have not increased complement. So we are noticing a delay in response to work orders and work requests by tenants. So in order to maintain the level of service that we need to in our housing units, we do need an additional maintenance servicer. And the senior project manager is a very similar reasoning. They would be sitting in the housing programs division, and with the increased complexity of reporting requirements, as well as negotiating the service agreements or exit agreements with housing providers, we do have the additional workload that needs to be offset by a staff person.
So if we were to ask you to reduce the overall budget increase, the incremental increase from where it is at 11%, if we do everything that you're asking us to do, and drop that by say 2 or 3%, what would you do?
Through the chair, I would have to go back to the Housing and Homelessness Services Department and have a serious discussion with the management team on what could be reduced and what the actual impacts would be.
So, Madam Chair, I may make a few comments. It's an unusual situation from years past for both myself and Mayor Bailey because of the strong mayor legislation and the burden of responsibility it puts on each of us in respect to overall budget. So that's why I'm looking at this very closely. And so what I'm very mindful of is, I don't hear very many people in our community saying, less policing or less housing or less social services. In fact, what I'm hearing is a real concern because I see it on the street, what's happening in respect to those that are most in need in our community. And really not surprised to see this because we know that the homeless count numbers have been going up as they are across the province. We know that the province is putting us in between a rock and a hard place because much of this we're administering for them, which is either Ontario Works or it's the childcare system, and not living up to their commitment to pay 50%. We have the federal government saying forever, for the last 5-6 years, they have some new extensive housing program they're going to roll out, and we never see it. So we're between a rock and a hard place between us and the higher levels of government. And then, of course, we have residents who are facing, homeowners who are facing in these economic times some difficulties. And any increase that goes beyond the rate of inflation on their property taxes does in and of itself create real hardship. It's a very difficult dilemma that we face. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to resolve it, but at the core of it, I agree with staff because of what's happening, because of the economic circumstances we're facing, which frankly, I think are going to get probably a lot worse. We already know the last quarter was GDP slipped 1.5%. I think that's going to continue the next quarter and probably beyond that. And we'll be facing a recession, probably, I think, a serious recession. So we know the need for these services is simply going to increase. And I thank staff for planning ahead, having a vision, looking at what's likely to happen. And so as decision makers, we'll have to decide whether we add this to the property tax. So we'll make our decisions in January and February, or whether we look for efficiencies elsewhere in the city operation to help fund this. It's a very difficult dilemma that we face, but I think we have to act very responsibly, being very mindful that the need for these services is just simply going to go up. And it's unreasonable to expect staff to be able to deal with it with the current staffing complement. So, comments?
Thank you. Mayor Bailey, did I see your hand go up? Okay. Oh, Councillor Carpenter, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Mary, have we looked at, I've been going to Kitchener and looking at the Better Tent City, which is really sheds, $2,000 sheds with hydro in them for the homeless. We haven't looked at the Kitchener model, or Kitchener City does it and the private groups do it. Have we looked at that model, see if we can save money? And then added to that question is, how much are we paying for one hotel room monthly?
Through the chair, great question. We, as in staff, have been following the developments in various cities such as Kitchener-Waterloo, St. Catharines, Kingston, with these more structured encampments. Unfortunately, we are not seeing the successes that people have been hoping for with them. When you change an encampment from tents into more structured buildings in an encampment site, other social problems do occur. What we have heard from other municipalities is that there's increased drug activity, there's increased concerns. If you look in the news, there are more deaths at encampments that are sanctioned. And frankly, the hygiene concerns and the health and safety concerns for both residents and staff are increased. When you look at the AMO report, the recommendations are moving away from temporary shelters such as encampments or even emergency shelters and transitioning to supportive and transitional housing units. Moving people into emergency sheltering is very temporary. What people need is support to stay housed. And so with the acquisition of 389 West Street, which is Fox Ridge, and looking at our overall homelessness system planning, what we are really looking to do is move away from emergency sheltering and increase transitional housing and supportive housing, so that when people are moved from homelessness into accommodations, they actually stay and retain their housing and hopefully don't experience homelessness again. And to answer the question about costs for motels, it does vary, but right now we are looking at paying anywhere from $100 to $120 per night for a motel stay. So that is one of the costs that we are monitoring very closely, and we would like to move away from using motels as soon as possible.
So we're paying by the night, not by the month.
Correct.
So we're still well over $3,000 a month.
Correct. One person in a motel for a month is over $3,000.
So these temporary encampments, have you looked at the Kitchener model then at all?
Yeah, yes, we have looked at the Kitchener model, and really it's not a recommended model for us.
Okay, because the one I visited seemed to be working very well. It's better than living in a tent in the park or in the woods. Seems like, I know it's not the answer, but it's got to be better than not having a home at all.
A lot of the sheds, the bigger concerns too is for the safety of the residents, because there's only one exit point. So even in case of fire or in case of health concerns, it's not the best residents. We really want to move people immediately from an encampment into a transitional housing unit, which a brick and mortar, an appropriate unit appropriate for their needs.
Yeah, and I had, the one that I visited, the fire department visited there once a month, so I've seen that there was fire inspections on a regular basis. There was a person that lived on site, sort of like a mother figure that had the central location. They were following rules, but the reason that these campuses seem to work, as I understand it, and you can correct me, is that because they can take their pet with them. They have their own place for security. They're not bound by what the costs are for some of these other locations that we're paying
Point of order,
dollars for.
point of order.
Is that
Madam
seem to work
Chair,
for-
point of order, is this relevant to the budget? I don't see anything in this proposed budget in respect to this. What it is that Councillor Carpenter.
Yeah, I'm just looking for other cheap ways to provide services at a lower cost. And so I guess it did have a point to the budget. Yeah. Okay, all right, well, I'll end that. Mayor's not happy.
Councillor Miller, please.
Question for the chair, or a procedural question. At some point you will call the question, are we allowed to break the operative clauses? Are we allowed to vote on them separately?
Yeah, we can separate them for the vote.
As, yeah, but I would ask that they be separated.
B and C then?
Pardon? Yeah, correct. Well, actually, yes, B and C, and if we could separate C1 and 2 when the time comes.
Okay, thank you. We'll do that. And Councillor McCreary, your turn, please.
Thank you, Chair. Since we've gone down the rabbit hole of encampments, first of all, I'd like to make sure that folks that tune into this session recognize that those who support these whatever was discussed earlier by another member of council, the majority of people that are responsible for caring for people like that are not of the opinion that these are successes. And I think that's an opinion that pervades our corporation, the City of Brantford staff, that what was spoken to earlier is not the optimal arrangement. And I think there was a response from staff that pointed out the inherent dangers, not only to the community, but to the people that live in these collectives. So it's important that people recognize that that opinion was not the majority opinion. Further down the rabbit hole, the nature of the folks who tend to congregate in these encampments would be what? Are these folks that we can generally place in housing, or are these folks who like to live in the wild, so to speak?
Through the chair, and this is very anecdotal information. However, it is coming from frontline staff who do the encampment outreach every single day. The majority of people who are residing in encampments either are choosing not to enter the emergency shelter system for a variety of reasons. Some have experienced trauma in emergency shelters previously and are not comfortable going into emergency sheltering services. Some of them have health concerns that are keeping them from entering the system. This could be anything from addictions, mental health. Some people are not aware of the services. Oftentimes, people have exacerbated symptoms of addictions and mental health that prevent them from entering emergency services because they have exhausted their stay, which means that they've been restricted from the shelter system due to inappropriate behaviors and violence. People living in encampments, we have tried to help them, but there are people who are just not appropriate for the shelter system. And so for those folks, the encampment outreach team tries to support them in place while they work for solutions that are appropriate to their needs. So whether that is looking for supportive housing or looking into housing units that they can maintain independently.
So would it be fair to summarize anecdotally then that any person in the City of Brantford who wants shelter will get it from us?
That is a very good summary, yes.
Yeah, and so that does not comprise the majority of folks that are in the encampments. They're there because of personal choice, mental illness, or drug addiction.
Yeah, a lot of people in encampments are facing multiple barriers in order to secure and maintain housing.
And it would be, I'm not sure if I could find a proper description, that would summarize what putting all these people together in one place would represent, other than a danger to society and more importantly to themselves, especially women. Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone have questions pertaining to the budget? Okay, so, Councillor Oakley, go ahead.
Yeah, to you, Chair. I do have one question, perhaps it may be a silly one. In terms of our capital projects here, can staff remind me what exactly is the process here or expected process for county initiatives to be part of this? Insofar as the ETA on the county projects is a TBD. Whether or not that is something that the county council determines and brings to this committee, or this committee directs and it goes direct to the county.
Through the chair, we would be looking for the county, if the county is interested in developing a housing site, then once a piece of property is identified, we can put it in the pipeline and then bring it forward to Social Services Committee for consideration. Once a Social Services Committee approves a capital development in the county, then we can proceed.
Thank you.
All right, and at this time, we'll call the question. Oh,
I don't believe I got the floor yet.
I did not see your hand though. Okay, go ahead, Councillor McCurry.
In summary, I think it's, we've got a bit of a dichotomy here. We want to support our staff. We also want to support our ratepayers. And I'm going to suggest that probably the course of action we should follow today is to approve this in its entirety, send it to the respective councils, and let those of us on council sort out our priorities for the budget year coming. Social services, police, definitely paramount. I understand we're getting a slightly more than modest increase in ambulance this year. So we've got a lot of balls in the air that we can juggle when time comes.
Okay, just to confirm before we go to the vote, Councillor Miller, can you just confirm that it's B and then C 1 and 2 that you want separated?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna do a recorded vote. There will be 4 votes inclusive here.
Sorry, Councillor Oakley, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, sorry, I just was going to make a comment here in regards to the larger item at discussion. Just in regards to some of the previous conversation in regards to how we can send messages to the province. I do appreciate where that comment's coming from. I certainly think the province needs to step up and do its own job that it's downloaded to us. However, I would caution any action that would impact our residents. I would also caution any members of council making broad sweeping statements about those suffering from mental health and addiction issues, and their choices and the ways that our services cannot actively serve them at this time in any sort of way of demonizing people who are experiencing some sort of trauma from our services.
Okay, thank you. We're going to call the vote now.
So we're voting on clause B. I'll do a recorded vote. Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Councillor Secoli,
Yes.
Councillor Celeste, not here today, sorry. Councillor McCurry,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Councillor Samwell,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Councillor Bell,
Yes.
Councillor Oakley,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor House,
Yes.
Councillor Garneau.
Yes.
That carries. We'll move on to clause C1. Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Councillor Secoli,
Yes.
Councillor McCurry,
Yes.
Councillor Carpenter,
Yes.
Councillor Samwell,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Councillor Bell,
Yes.
Councillor Oakley,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor House,
Yes.
Councillor Garneau.
Yes.
That carries. We'll move to C2. Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Councillor Secoli,
Yes.
Counselor McCreary,
Yes.
Counselor Carpenter,
Yes.
Counselor Samwell,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Counselor Bell,
Yes.
Counselor Oakley,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
No.
Counselor House,
Yes.
Counselor Garneau,
Yes.
and that carries. And the balance of the resolution, Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Secoli,
Yes.
Counselor McCreary,
Yes.
Counselor Carpenter,
Yes.
Counselor Samwell,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Counselor Bell,
Yes.
Counselor Oakley,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor House,
Yes.
and Counselor Garneau.
Yes.
That carries.
All right, thank you. And now we're going to move on to item 5.2. And Counselor Carpenter, you separated that item, so you may go ahead.
Thank you. Just put to the staff. So this is the Canada Ontario funding model. So does this have anything to do with the accelerator fund that our government has set up?
Through the chair, no, this is under the National Housing Strategy, which is a 10-year plan by the federal government. So the federal government entered into a bilateral agreement with the province of Ontario to fund this funding stream. The Housing Accelerator Fund is a different funding program. The city did apply for that funding stream. I believe the years are muddled together in August 2023. And unfortunately, we were unsuccessful for the first round of the Housing Accelerator Fund.
So we have applied.
We have applied to the Housing Accelerator Fund and we were unsuccessful.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further hands, we'll call the vote on this item.
All those in favor, we're voting on item 5.2. Carried.
Thank you. We're moving on to item 5.4, and Counselor Miller, you separated that item. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I did sneak my question in during the budget talks.
All right, well then with that, I see no other hands, so we'll call a vote on this item.
All those in favor? Carried.
Perfect. So there are no resolutions and there are no notices of motion today. So the meeting of the Social Services Committee is now adjourned. For those online, we will start the Brant Brantford Local Housing Corporation Board of Directors meeting in just a moment. Thank you. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll now call the meeting of the Brant Brantford Local Housing Corporation Board of Directors to order for Wednesday, September 3rd. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
Through the chair, the roll has been taken.
Committee, are there any items for declarations of conflict of interest appearing on the agenda today? Seeing none, there are no presentations or delegations for today's meeting. At this time, I'll ask if the committee, if there are any items you would like separated for discussion purposes. Counselor Miller, go ahead, please.
5.1, Madam Chair.
All right. Sorry. Okay, so could I get a mover and a seconder for all items that have not been separated for discussion purposes? Mayor Davis and Counselor Bell, thank you.
The item subject to the vote is the minutes from June 4th, 2025. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
So now could I get a mover and seconder for the items that have been separated for discussion purposes to be put on the floor? Counselor Miller and Counselor Oakley, thank you. And with that, we'll discuss item 5.1, and Counselor Miller, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know if it's a question, comment, feedback. Mayor Bailey received an email from a longtime resident of Sunrise Villa. And her concern, actually it was from her daughter, but their concern was they had vacated, obviously everybody vacated, but they weren't getting feedback on when the unit was going to be ready, what they were supposed to do. We shared the email with staffs and I'll say right up front, staff were really good. They dealt with her. I think she was offered a place at Trillium and, anyways, that was dealt with. But I also heard from another resident, another longtime resident, and it was the same concern that they weren't getting the feedback about next steps. When could they move in? And so forth. So my concern, question, comment, I don't know, is can staff do a better job? And obviously this is a one-off. We don't see this happen every day. But how do people stay up to date on what's going on when a situation like this arises? They want to know when they can move in, what their options are and so forth. So, like I say, if I'd heard it from one person, you deal with it. When I heard it from two, I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's some more of an issue to dive into. So, like I say, the one that we did contact staff, great help with, but anyways, maybe staff could comment on those concerns.
Through the chair, Katie Moss, Acting Director of Housing and Homelessness. All of the displaced tenants from Sunrise Villa were attached to a housing stability worker. And they were also receiving communication via letter, phone calls, and in person. Some of the individuals were placed in different locations while they were waiting to return to their units. And at times, staff may have misplaced where these people had been or the best means of communication for them. That being said, as soon as something like that is brought to staff's attention, it becomes a priority, and we try to ensure that the lines of communication stay open and appropriate based on the need of the person requiring it.
Okay. And like I said, maybe more for feedback in the future. I know you do what you can, but just I guess we got to keep in mind some of the clients and maybe they're not up to speed on the email or whatever. So, like I said, I appreciate what staff did for the one resident, but communication. So, thank you.
Councillor Carpenter, go ahead.
Thank you, just the staff. The 359 Darling Street, we're tearing the roof off and remediating the mold. How did the mold get there? Was there insufficient structure with the building, or is it how did it get there in the first place?
So through the chair, the 359 Darling Street, the roof repairs were completed a number of years ago. So as staff, the contracted company right now is investigating and reporting back to staff on what happened. But we believe that it might have been faulty construction of the repairs that were completed previously. And so that is why the mold grew, and now we have to remediate again.
So the faulty construction would have been the only way mold would happen is if they weren't getting air flow through vents, weren't putting proper roof vents in at the time. So when we have this work done, do we have somebody inspect it?
Through the chair, I can speak currently. Yes, we do. I cannot speak to the past construction as the leadership in housing and homelessness has completely overturned. So we don't have that
history. There's no ability to go back on the company that did the work a few years ago either.
We're working with our legal department to determine whether or not there's any recourse we can take.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Oakley, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, to staff, just as per Councillor Miller's question, would you say it's fair to say that based on a previous comment made during the budget item, that staff are working off the side of their desks, working overtime, etc., to provide various services, that service level gaps like the one identified by Councillor Miller would be a natural consequence of staff operating without sufficient resources?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to highlight that as a consequence of our both of our municipalities focusing on finding efficiencies versus providing a comprehensive service.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands, we'll call the vote on this item.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
All right, with that, there are no resolutions, no notices of motion. So the meeting of the Brant Brantford Local Housing Corporation Board of Directors is now adjourned. We will be proceeding to the Brantford Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board of Directors meeting, and Brant councillors, you may be excused if you wish. All right, so welcome everybody to the Brantford Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, September 3rd. And clerk, has the roll been taken?
Through the chair, the roll has been taken.
Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for anything appearing on today's agenda? Seeing none. There are no presentations or delegations for today's meeting. At this time, I ask if there are any items that the committee would wish to have separated for discussion purposes. All right, seeing none, can I please get a mover and seconder to place all items on the floor? Councillor Carpenter and Councillor McCurry, thank you.
The item subject to the vote, 5.1, VMMP second quarter report and the minutes from June 4th, 2025. All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
All right, so there are no resolutions and no notices of motion appearing on today's agenda. So the meeting of the Brantford Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board of Directors is now adjourned. Thank you.